Hi and welcome. I'm AnewZ and you are watching AnewZ. Here are the headlines. Russia hits Ukraine with large-scale attack. At least 3 killed and 25 injured in Kiev alone. Thousands in Tel Aviv call for an end to the war in Gaza and hostages release. The head of UN's nuclear watchdog visits Syria to clarify past nuclear activities. Thank you for tuning in. Russia launched a massive overnight attack on Ukraine, hitting Kiev and several major cities with drones and missiles. According to Ukrainian officials, at least 3 people were killed and 25 injured in Kiev alone.
Ukraine came under heavy fire overnight as Russia launched a massive combined drone and missile assault on cities across the country, including Kyiv, Lviv, Ternopil, Lutsk and Chernihiv. Ukraine's Air Force reported that 452 Iranian-designed Shahed drones and 45 missiles were launched, with strategic bombers playing a key role in the strike. Kyiv was the hardest hit. 3 emergency workers were killed and 25 people were injured. Explosions rocked multiple districts of the capital, causing fires and damage to residential buildings, an educational facility and power infrastructure.
Usually we are staying in the corridor, and this time my wife also insisted that we sleep in the corridor. So I can say she saved my life.
We were at the parking when we heard a strong explosion. People ran out to see what happened. The firefighters and an ambulance arrived. Then missiles start coming. Thanks God, our firefighters, even under such conditions, were helping people. At my apartment, all the windows were blown. It's horrible.
More than 2,100 families in the city lost electricity, and metro services were disrupted due to missile damage between 2 stations. Ukraine's rail network also reported detours due to infrastructure damage. Further west, the city of Lutsk suffered extensive damage to civilian infrastructure, including homes, schools and administrative buildings. At least 16 people were injured. In Ternopil, cruise missiles and drones damaged energy facilities and injured 11 people, including 6 emergency workers. In Chernihiv, a combined strike using drones, ballistic and cruise missiles damaged residential areas, injuring 4 civilians. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has urged the US, Europe and allies to respond with stronger pressure on Russia, warning that inaction enables further bloodshed.
The US Senate is set to move ahead next week with a bill on imposing sanctions on Russia and countries buying Russian oil and other goods. The bill, which has bipartisan support, would impose a 500% tariff on imported goods from countries that buy Russian oil, gas and other goods. Senators Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal accused Russian President Vladimir Putin of trying to drag out the peace process following a visit to Kyiv.
Ukraine is ready for peace, is willing to make sacrifices and compromise for peace, is willing to stop the fighting to achieve peace. It's clear to almost anyone Putin is not remotely interested in anything that would lead to peace.
The burden is on Vladimir Putin. And right now, let's be very blunt, he's playing the United States for a stooge. Americans don't like to be made fools of. But that's what he's doing. Clearly, obviously, prolonging and playing for time, stonewalling and stalling and stringing out the President of the United States. Americans won't stand for it.
Earlier on Thursday, US President Donald Trump likened the war between Russia and Ukraine to children fighting in a park. Speaking alongside the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz in the Oval Office, Trump threatened with a very tough response if it becomes clear the war will not end soon. Merz said that both of them agree the war is terrible and are looking for ways to stop it.
US President Donald Trump welcomed German Chancellor Friedrich Merz to the White House on Thursday.
Your message to the people of Germany.
Thank you very much. Thank you again. Fantastic.
The meeting focused on three major issues: defense spending, trade tariffs, and the war in Ukraine. Merz, who took office last month, said he was looking forward to strengthening ties with the US. On Ukraine, both leaders expressed concern about the ongoing conflict. They reaffirmed their continued support for Ukraine, with Germany now the second largest military and financial contributor after the US.
When I see the moment when we're not going to make a deal, when this thing won't stop,
Is there a deadline?
in that moment, yeah, it's in my brain, the deadline. When I see the moment where it's not going to stop, and I'm sure you're going to do the same thing, will be very, very, very tough. And it could be on both countries, to be honest. You know, it takes two to tango. But we're going to be very tough. Whether it's Russia or anybody else, we're going to be very tough. That's a bloodbath that's going on over there.
We both agree on this war and how terrible this war is going on. And we are both looking for ways to stop it very soon. And I told the president before we came in that he is the key person in the world who can really do that now by putting pressure on Russia. And we will have this debate later on again, how we can proceed jointly between the Europeans and the Americans. And I think we are having the duty to do something on that now to stop it after 3.5 years, which is really terrible.
The two leaders also discussed trade issues, which, however, remain unresolved. The US and EU are still negotiating a possible deal that could be crucial for Germany's export-driven economy.
We will have a good trade deal. I mean, I guess that will be mostly determined by the European Union, but you're a very big part of that, so you'll be involved. But we'll end up hopefully with a trade deal, or we'll do something. You know, we'll do the tariffs. I mean, I'm okay with the tariffs, or we make a deal with the trade, and I guess that's what we're discussing. I know that you're spending more money on defense now, and quite a bit more money, and that's a positive thing. I'm not sure that General MacArthur would have said it's positive. You know, he wouldn't like it, but I sort of think it's good. You understand what I mean by that?
I understand.
He made a statement: never let Germany rearm. And I said, I always think about that when he says, sir, we're spending more money on defense. I say, oh, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I think it's a good thing.
Trump reiterated calls for NATO allies to spend more on defense, but hinted at limits for Germany, citing historical sensitivities.
Donald Trump and the Chinese President Xi Jinping agreed to resume trade talks to resolve tariff disputes and rare earth minerals export issues. Talks had earlier stalled over accusations from each side that the other had reneged on the deal made recently in Geneva. Following the long-awaited phone call, Trump said the conversation focused almost entirely on trade and announced another meeting of trade delegations. The Chinese readout said that both sides should make good on the agreement reached in Geneva. Beijing says that Washington will honor the One China policy, and that Xi told Trump that U.S. must handle the Taiwan question with prudence, not allowing separatists to drag the two countries to a confrontation. Anti-government protesters took to the streets of Tel Aviv, demanding an end to the war in Gaza, calling for a political resolution of the conflict. Meanwhile, right-wing supporters gathered in Jerusalem to show support for the government.
In Tel Aviv, thousands of protesters gathered in Rabin Square on Thursday, demanding an end to the ongoing war that erupted after the deadly Hamas-led attack on October 7th.
We are holding a protest here when the first call is to end the war. This is a political war. It doesn't provide any safety or security, not to our soldiers, not to the hostages, and also not to the people in Gaza. It's purely a political war, and we are standing here together in Rabin Square when Prime Minister Rabin was assassinated calling for the end of the war because everything is connected to everything. And once this war ends, we can start rebuilding Israel and the region.
Demonstrators called for a political resolution to the conflict and voiced frustration over the government's handling of the crisis. Protesters marched through the city streets, lighting smoke flares and clashing with police. Security forces intervened to disperse parts of the crowd, forcibly removing some demonstrators as tensions escalated. Meanwhile, a pro-government demonstration was held outside Israel's Supreme Court in Jerusalem, organised by several right-wing groups. Supporters gathered to back the Israeli government's policies, including judicial reform. The rally was attended by several members of parliament.
The United Nations has honored 168 staff members who died in service last year, majority of whom killed in Gaza. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for accountability.
At the UN headquarters in New York, a memorial service was held to honor staff who died in service in 2024. Of the 168 personnel remembered, 126 were killed in Gaza, the highest single-year toll in the UN's history. Most of those killed were working for the UN Relief and Works Agency.
We have suffered unspeakable and unprecedented losses in Gaza. This past year alone, 126 of our colleagues were killed in Gaza, including 125 women and men who worked for UNRWA. Some were killed with their families. I repeat my call for full accountability.
Guterres said more than 1 in every 50, the UN Relief and Works Agency staff in Gaza had been killed, and warned against the growing global acceptance of violence against aid workers. He stressed that the UN will not accept the killing of civilians, journalists, or humanitarian staff as the new normal. He also highlighted the dedication of the fallen personnel, describing their work not as jobs, but as acts of service carried out without seeking recognition. At a time of global division, he said their sacrifice should serve as a reminder of the value of international cooperation and shared humanity.
Head of the UN's nuclear watchdog, Grossi, led a team of inspectors to examine past nuclear sites in Syria. The trip follows an agreement reached with interim Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara, who granted the UN agency immediate and unrestricted access to sites relevant to clarifying the country's past nuclear activities. Grossi shared the news on X, calling the visit a critical step towards resolving outstanding issues. Thousands of Muslims gathered in Mecca's Grand Mosque to mark Eid al-Adha amid the annual Hajj pilgrimage, welcoming one of Islam's holiest festivals. The pilgrims went on to Mina for the ritual of stoning the devil.
Thousands of Muslims filled Mecca's Grand Mosque at sunrise on Friday, offering Eid al-Adha prayers during one of the most significant moments of the annual Hajj pilgrimage. Hajj, the fifth pillar of Islam, is a once-in-a-lifetime obligation for all physically and financially able Muslims. It brings together millions from across the globe in a powerful display of faith, unity and devotion. Later in the morning, pilgrims made their way to Mina to perform the stoning of the devil ritual. At the Jamarat site, they threw small pebbles at 3 stone pillars, an act symbolizing the rejection of evil, first carried out by the Prophet Ibrahim. The ritual marks the first day of Eid al-Adha, the festival of sacrifice. This year's pilgrimage continues over several days as pilgrims complete a series of rites passed down over 14 centuries, honoring tradition while strengthening their spiritual connection.
Azerbaijan's ambassador to the UK has rejected claims that one of Armenia's wealthiest men is facing a kangaroo court. pointing to recent international legal rulings that support the legitimacy of the proceedings.
Ruben Vardanyan, an Armenian oligarch, is currently detained in Baku facing 42 charges related to war crimes. His son recently called the trial a kangaroo court. Azerbaijan's ambassador to the UK, Elen Suleymanov, rejects these claims, saying that the process is legitimate and backed by rulings from the International Court of Justice and a UN Human Rights Panel. He points out that the court proceedings are open to the public, televised, and that Vardanyan has full legal defense.
Mr. Vardanyan is being tried on a very clear accusations of committing war crimes, managing and organizing and financing terrorist activity plus armed groups. Now, this all is not just our accusations. All the claims about so-called kangaroo court and things like that were dismissed summarily by the International Court of Justice very recently, about 2 months ago, and by the UN High Human Rights Council's group on arbitrary detentions, which completely dismissed all these accusations. What they said was that the due process is being followed, that Mr. Vardanyan is being tried on a very clear and obvious accusations, and that the court is being conducted very much along the principles and guidelines and rules of international law and Azerbaijani legislation. Now, if you follow the court hearings yourself, you could actually, court proceedings are very open. They are not closed. You could see them on TV. People followed. You could see how open it is, that he has his defense.
Suleymanov adds that Vardanyan was parachuted into Karabakh from Moscow, describing him as an oligarch who supported separatism, financed terrorism, and threatened Azerbaijani officials. He also notes that Vardanyan is sanctioned by Ukraine for supporting Russian military actions. While understanding the emotional reaction from Vardanyan's family, Suleymanov insists the court process must continue. On why the trial has lasted this long, he says the trial has taken over 550 days because real legal proceedings take time, not like Soviet-era show trials, and adds that it's Vardanyan's own legal team that has repeatedly asked for more time and resources. American political analyst Michael Doran has weighed in on the case of Ruben Vardanyan, posting on his X account that Vardanyan made billions in Russia as a crony of Putin and was parachuted into Karabakh to serve as a rival to PM Pashinyan. He also accused Vardanyan of using the Aurora Prize to manipulate high-profile Americans, naming George Clooney and Samantha Power. Ruben Vardanyan founded Russia's Troika Dialogue Bank and was a major figure in Moscow's financial sector, also supporting Armenian interests. An investigation linked Troika Dialogue to a large money laundering operation benefiting Vardanyan and his family, though he denies wrongdoing. In 2022, he gave up his Russian citizenship, moved to Karabakh, and became state minister of the unrecognized Nagorno-Karabakh Republic. Azerbaijan accuses him of funding illegal armed groups there, while experts say his move aligns with Kremlin interests in the South Caucasus.
Who is Ruben Vardanyan, who stands accused of terrorism, financing armed groups, and other serious offenses? And how did he become entangled in such allegations? Here are the details.
Vardanyan's court hearing, presided over by Judge Zainal Agayev on January 17th, will address accusations ranging from terrorism to crimes against humanity. According to the Azerbaijani State Security Service, these charges stem from his alleged involvement in funding and organizing illegal armed groups operating in Karabakh. Best known as the founder of Troika Dialogue, one of Russia's premier investment banks, Vardanyan also carved a reputation as an advocate for global Armenian interests. His career trajectory has taken him from Moscow's financial elite to international headlines. Vardanyan's impact on Russia's economy was profound. Under his leadership, Troika Dialogue became a cornerstone of Russian finance, and he served on the boards of major companies like Kamaz and Volga-Dnepr. His work extended to the Skolkovo Innovation Center, a flagship project in Russia's bid to modernize its economy. The Organised Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, OCCRP, revealed that Troika Dialogue facilitated the transfer of billions of dollars through a complex network of offshore accounts. These transactions reportedly benefited Russian oligarchs and government-affiliated entities. Although Vardanyan has denied direct involvement, OCCRP's investigation paints a picture of a financial ecosystem intertwined with Kremlin interests.
Vardanyan and his family were among those who received money from the laundromat. More than $3.2 million was used to pay for his American Express card, went to accounts belonging to his wife and family, and paid school fees for his 3 children in Great Britain. Asked about these sums, Vardanyan said the offshore companies Troika created serviced his own companies in addition to the bank's clients.
In a dramatic shift, Vardanyan renounced his Russian citizenship in 2022 to avoid Western sanctions. But Ukraine included him on its sanctions list for providing logistical support to the Russian occupation army. Right after denouncing his Russian citizenship, he relocated to Karabakh, assuming the role of state minister in the so-called unrecognized self-proclaimed Nagorno-Karabakh Republic. He positioned himself as a visionary leader focused on the region's development amid escalating tensions. The timing of Vardanyan's move has raised suspicions. Analysts argue that his presence in Karabakh coincided with Russia's strategic interests in maintaining influence over the South Caucasus. Vardanyan has faced accusations of being a Kremlin-installed figure aimed at undermining Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan, who has pursued more pro-Western policies. These claims are widely discussed in geopolitical analyses, including reports by Stratfor and the Moscow Times. During his tenure as state minister, Vardanyan reportedly facilitated the operations of illegal armed factions. According to Azerbaijani security services, he facilitated the funding and operation of these groups, contravening international and Azerbaijani law. His activities have been a focal point in Azerbaijan's legal and diplomatic efforts to reassert control over Karabakh.
Based on the collected evidence, reasonable suspicions have arisen that Vardanyan Ruben Karlenovich, born in 1968, currently a citizen of the Republic of Armenia, committed the criminal acts under Articles 214-1, financing of terrorism, 279.3, participation in an armed formations or groups, which are not provided by the legislation, and 318.1, illegal crossing of the state border of the Republic of Azerbaijan, of the Criminal Code of the Republic of Azerbaijan.
Vardanyan's arrest on September 27, 2023, marked a turning point. Azerbaijani forces detained him while he attempted to cross into Armenia, citing substantial evidence of his involvement in terrorism and other crimes. His trial, set to begin shortly, will not only scrutinize his actions, but could also have broader implications for regional dynamics.
Environmental concerns are mounting in Armenia as alarming levels of heavy metal pollution threaten river ecosystems and public health. At the center of international concern is the Debed River, which connects to both Georgia and Azerbaijan.
Images from Armenia's Debed River, also known as Pambak, previously known as Tona River, expose dangerous levels of pollution. This issue rings environmental alarm bells in Armenia, where unchecked mining operations are threatening not only local ecosystems but the health and safety of the entire South Caucasus region.
We study the microinvertebrates that are eaten by fish, and based on the consistency, quantity and variety of species, we determine the ecological condition of the water.
This river is also linked to the Aktala and Alaverdi mines. The toxic wastewater basins violate environmental norms and endanger cross-border river systems shared by Georgia and Azerbaijan.
I measure the physico-chemical parameters of the river using the YSI device, which we received as part of the EU Water Initiative Plus. The same process took place on our side, in Armenia and in Georgia. The operational goal was achieved, and we met our Georgian partners, although from a distance.
The Debed feeds into the Kura River, ultimately reaching the Caspian Sea. This means the damage extends far beyond Armenia's borders, raising urgent regional concerns. Scientific studies confirm heavy metal contamination in water samples from 2013 and 2014, showing reduced aquatic biodiversity, particularly among phytoplankton, and raising red flags for human health in surrounding communities. Local NGOs like the Community Resistance and Contribution Centre are calling for accountability, while international watchdogs say Armenia must comply with treaties like the Espoo Convention. NGOs from 13 countries have appealed to the UN and Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, demanding independent monitoring and transparency from Armenia on environmental impacts affecting the entire region. So far, there's been no adequate response, but civil society isn't backing down, insisting that without urgent international action, this cross-border crisis will only deepen.
The heads of government of the Commonwealth of Independent States met in Tajikistan on Thursday, where they signed several agreements.
The Council of Heads of Government of the Commonwealth of Independent States meeting is led by Tajik Prime Minister Kohir Rasulzoda and attended by leaders from Russia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Armenia and Turkmenistan. The Commonwealth of Independent States, CIS, is a regional organisation of former Soviet republics. It aims to promote cooperation in politics, economics, security and cultural ties among its member countries. Kyrgyzstan's Prime Minister Akilbek Japarov reports that trade between Kyrgyzstan and other CIS countries grew by 10% last year, making up over 37% of the country's total trade. Exports accounted for 48%, while imports made up 34%. Azerbaijan's Prime Minister Ali Asadov highlighted the growing economic ties within the CIS. He notes that trade increased by 7% in 2024 and surged 43% in the first 4 months of 2025. Asadov also emphasises Azerbaijan's key role in regional transport and energy projects. He reminds the leaders that the third CIS Games will take place from September 28th to October 8th in Ganja and other cities. During the meeting, several important agreements are signed. The leaders agree to cooperate on developing heavy engineering industries and update public health plans across the CIS. A new charter for the CIS Volunteer Forum is approved to boost youth exchange and cooperation. Additionally, a joint communication system for the armed forces is adopted, and a new badge is established to recognise tourism development in the region.
The fourth Central Asia-India dialogue has begun in New Delhi. Interconnectivity and infrastructure are expected to be high on the agenda. Joining us to briefly talk on the event is Sheraz Mahmoud Khan, a researcher scholar at the Western Caspian University. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. How important would you say India is for the Central Asian countries when it comes to region's global connectivity and vice versa?
All right, so, Central Asia, after the dissolution of Soviet Union, has become a hub of attraction for all the regional powers, be it the middle powers, be it the bigger powers in the region, for US, for China, for Russia itself, and obviously the middle powers like Pakistan, India, and Azerbaijan, and Turkey. So obviously India is looking forward for all kinds of cooperations in that regard as well, be it the economic cooperation or the other cooperations with Central Asian countries, trade and all that. Right now, as this business council, the Central Asian countries and India Business Council, meeting is going on or just went on. India is actually looking for something like AI applications coordination, or tourism, or medical, infrastructure, or and so on and so forth. So this meeting is actually on the level of the foreign ministers. Jaishankar was in the meeting. Jaishankar was saying that it is, they have boosted the relation, the trade relations with Central Asian countries to around $2 billion, whereas some other guy from India was saying it was 1.2 billion. So we're not really sure how much is the trade right now. But of course, for India, Central Asian countries, like all other powers in the region, is very important for connectivity, for trade, for other economic cooperations and all that. But as far as I see right now, is because the only corridor which directly connects India to Central Asian countries is the northern or north-south corridor, which is in which two of the powers, two of the big countries of that corridor is Iran and Russia, and both of the countries have a lot of sanctions. So India is not really without direct contact with Central Asian countries is kind of very difficult for India.
Well, as the talks are underway, how much of an impact would you say that the relations between New Delhi and Central Asia have had? How impacted they were by the recent India-Pakistan conflict? And were they impacted?
Well, New Delhi. I will tell you. I will tell you a little broader perspective of the region. After the withdrawal of U.S. From the region, and India being the strategic ally, a very strong strategic ally of the region, so India has kind of lost its grip, or its very important part as a regional actor in Central Asian countries, or in the South Caucasus, or even in the region, if you call it the whole region, right? So, and then Pakistan and India went through a very precise and very crisp conflict, and obviously India had to get defeated in that as well. India's media was saying something else. India's generals were saying something else. India being in narrative building, it could not really succeed as well. They could not prove whatever they wanted to prove on the media. And obviously, Pakistan has shot down 5 or 6, whatever the number is, but it is for sure more than 3 or 4 or 5 in different, the numbers are different, but obviously Pakistan has shot their Rafales. Pakistan has done an amazing job in this small, crisp war, where India's narrative is being subdued in the region. Pakistan has always stood by its own high moral grounds, and India has violated the international law, whereas in this region, India does not have much of the supporters. For example, Pakistan is supported by Azerbaijan, Pakistan is supported by Turkey, Pakistan is supported by Central Asian countries, Pakistan is supported by the Middle East, Pakistan is supported by Saudi Arabia. And so, recently after Prime Minister visited Iran, Turkey, Azerbaijan, and all these countries, Pakistan's Prime Minister is visiting, Saudi Arabia right now. So what I'm trying to say is that India has lost its credibility in the region, and that's why India is trying to come back with this small kind of a cooperation. It will be cooperation on a very small level, maybe the people-to-people connection, or maybe the tourism connections and all that, because India now does not really appreciate coming to Baku or all the other regions after this conflict, because Baku was standing beside Pakistan in this conflict, and so was Turkey, and we're very grateful to that. But now India is looking forward for some other destinations, for education maybe, for tourism, and for banking infrastructure, and this kind of digital economy, and this kind of a cooperation India is looking forward for. But as far as the proper trade and connectivity and the major steps in regional cooperation, you need to have a ground connectivity, a physical connectivity, which India right now does not really have it, because Iran, Chabahar port is with Iran. Iran has all the sanctions. We know Russia is full of sanctions as well, and Russia is already in the Ukraine war. So the problem is that we don't really. India wants to come back somehow or the other, but it's not getting a lot of space.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and providing us with your insight.
Thank you.
In other news, the South Caucasus' biggest digital and gaming event kicks off this weekend in Baku. From globally renowned studios to student developers, Gamer Summit 2025 is where creativity, technology, and opportunity converge.
Game Summit 2025, the region's biggest celebration of gaming, digital culture, and creative industries, will take place from June 6th to 8th at Seabreeze Resort, Baku. The annual festival brings together global and local giants including Solar, Epic Games, Garena, alongside support from the Azerbaijani Ministry of Culture, IAEA, and the Embassy of Japan. Kicking off with an international business conference on June 6th, the event will spotlight trends in game development, gamification, and the export of local creative talent. Gamers can compete in esports tournaments, visit developer and publisher zones, and enjoy a colourful cosplay festival and K-pop performances. A bustling market zone will offer collectibles and exclusive merch.
I think it's great for Baku that the starting point is here with the Game Summit. I mean, it's been well represented, a lot of great turnout today, and I think there's huge opportunity in this country in regards to not only talent but emerging talent and new talent coming into play. So I think they're doing a great job promoting this environment. There's a lot more to be done and a lot more opportunities to be had, but I think the future looks really, really bright for gaming and all of the associated areas as well within the environment.
So we've seen what the film industry has been capable of doing, and we've seen the cultural impact it can have in terms of translating the messaging, right? Gaming is here to complement and enable the creator economy. So it transcends media. It's not just films and not just social media. Gaming is cross-sector, right? So it's cross-pollination. And the reason the government should be supporting the creative economy, and more importantly, the gaming industry, is because it's a $600 billion industry. Azerbaijan is perfectly positioned to be that regional hub that attracts the foreign investments and the studios.
But Game Summit is more than just entertainment. It's a launch pad for the next generation of industry professionals. Career consultations, mentorship sessions, workshops, and speed networking will help students and enthusiasts connect with the industry's top players.
And in the world of sports, Uzbekistan secured their first ever FIFA World Cup spot with a goalless draw against the United Arab Emirates on Thursday. Uzbekistan goalkeeper Utkir Yusupov's 6 saves guaranteed his team a priceless point to proceed with one game of the qualifiers remaining. The result guarantees Uzbekistan's debut at the tournament next summer in the United States, Canada and Mexico. Fans took to the streets of Tashkent and other cities to celebrate their team qualifying for the World Cup for the first time since independence in 1991. And that's all we have for you for now. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to AnewZ.